So what happens on the day itself? I'm going to give you a few hints and tips, a little bit of advice here, and of course walk you through what happens during that hour or so. Pick up your pupil as you normally would. Obviously allow enough time for your weather conditions and your traffic to get you to your allocated test centre in enough time, so that's not going to cause you panic to start with. Don't enter your test centre car park much before 5 or 6 minutes before your standards check, as you know how some test centres can be a little bit funny about that. Having said that, if you know your test times and you know that tests have gone out, there's nobody due to come in again, you're more than welcome to go in and they won't have a problem with that. The choice is yours as to whether you take your pupil into your test centre or not. Now, I know some driving instructors choose the standards check as an ideal opportunity for those provisional licence holders to come into the test centre and have a look at the waiting room and get a vibe and a feel for it, so you can use that for their experience. They can come in, they can then go back and sit in the car, or you can choose just to leave them in the car. That is not a problem. You can choose to introduce them to the SE in the waiting room. The chances are the SE will say hello, and then we'll invite them to go and sit in the car while they have a chat to you anyway. The SE will appear pretty much dead on the time that is stated in your letter. Bring into the test centre with you your good old green badge. That's what the letter means when it says your registration certificate, so don't be confused by that. Also, feel free to take in any CPD folders that you have or any pupil records. Not that any of those are compulsory, so don't feel that you need to be up till 2 o'clock in the morning falsifying any records or making yourself trying to look good by printing off certificates. It's not that important, but if you do have them, they will be obliged to have a little look at them. The SE will take you out of the waiting room. Now, they will either take you into a separate room or they'll stand you outside if it's not raining, somewhere a little bit away from everybody else that is in the test centre already, and they'll ask you some very basic questions. Now, they want to know your pupil's name, they want to know what you're planning on doing with your pupil, based on how many hours the pupil already has had, where you think that they're at, what the pupil feels that they're needing to do, and whether the pupil's had any private practice if they're a provisional licence holder. So those are just the basic run through. You can choose to have that on a piece of paper to give to the SE, or you can choose to just do that verbally. That's not a problem. They will ask you your goal for the lesson, and it's perfectly acceptable to say, well, this is what we did last time, this is what we're planning on doing this time. Having said that, I'm going to ask my pupil where they feel that they're at and if anything has changed. So that's basically what you'll be doing and saying with the SE in those first 5 minutes. The SE will then give you the opportunity to ask any questions and will then say, lead me to your car and introduce me to your pupil if you haven't already done so. And the SE will also say, I'd like you to have us back here by, and they'll give you a time. Now, the hour that you have starts pretty much from that moment. So at the moment, that time that the SE says, so back here for 12 o'clock, please, that is your allocated time. Now, it's not particularly unusual for an SE to ask you to be back maybe 5 or 10 minutes early if there has been an issue during the day and perhaps they've already been held up with other standards checks. So when you're actually planning your standards check, don't let that throw you, and we'll talk a little bit about that when it comes to the planning. So the SE will tell you your time. So you'll go to the car, introduce the pupil. The SEs tend to be very good with your pupils. They tend to say something along the lines of, don't worry about me, I'm here to watch your driving instructor, not you, so you carry on and do what you normally do. Not that I think that is particularly reassuring, but that's how they'll introduce themselves to your pupil. You'll then have your hour. You will then be back at the test centre after your hour. Now, your hour includes the debriefing, so that should be within the hour. Having said that, I have known ADIs who have shortened their briefing because they knew that their time was running out a little bit and have been penalised for that. And I have heard SEs say they'd much prefer to see an extra 2 or 3 minutes running over than for you not to fulfil that last skill and show off that ability to kind of wrap up a lesson. So don't be overly worried about that. The SE will then say thank you very much at the point where it's become obvious that you've finished your lesson, and ask you to give him 10 minutes or so while he'll go back into the test centre to do the paperwork. You may well be asked to go back into the test centre to help yourselves to drink or obviously use the facilities, and then when the SE is ready, he will come back out of the car. Now, at that point, the debrief 99 times out of 100 will be in the car itself, and your pupil will be asked to go into the waiting room at that point and wait for you. And the SE will then obviously give you your results, do a debrief, and then offer to come back into the test centre with you or send your pupil out. And that's basically your kind of hour or so leading up to that. Now, a couple of little hints and tips here. If you pick up your pupil as you normally would, one of the things that I suggest you do is you drive to the test centre. Now, a couple of reasons for this. The lesson that you're going to do on your standards check is meant to be a follow-on from your last drive. Now, your last drive becomes the drive to the test centre. So, of course, if your pupil has had a bit of a problem with a particular roundabout on the way, or something has happened that has got into their brain and they're now worrying about it, however much you were going to go off and do a particular subject, your pupil is going to have that little issue going on. So whatever happened in that drive to the test centre, and they'll probably dump you in it. So they'll probably say, you know, you're going off to do a turn in the road, for example. They'll probably say, oh, this is the roundabout I messed up on my way here, wasn't it, Louise? So just be a little bit aware of that. So one of the ways of controlling that is, as I said, you drive to the test centre. Now, another reason for saying you drive to the test centre is what happens is if the pupil drives to the test centre, you've already got into your instructor mode. You're already doing that kind of role, and the chances are you've done the cockpit drill, you've done a little bit of introduction, you have talked even about what the lesson is going to be, and what happens is when the SE gets in the back of the car, you've kind of forgotten how much you've already said and what you've already set and all that kind of stuff. So it's really useful to literally start your standards check as if you have picked the pupil up from home. Now, again, the third reason why I recommend that you either control this little bit or you drive to the test centre is that if you've chosen to leave the pupil in the car, they do very natural things like push their seat back, take their seatbelts off, turn the radios on, that kind of stuff. And of course, if you've done a cockpit drill while you were outside their house before they set off, you can see that naturally your brain is not doing that. So of course what happens is that you get yourself ready, and the pupil hasn't got themselves ready because you have presumed that they are already ready, and we've had a couple of incidents where pupils have pulled off and seatbelts have alarms have beeped, or pupils haven't been able to reach clutch pedals and stalled at the test centre entrance and things like that. So it doesn't look particularly good. So start afresh, start your whole lesson from the test centre. That would be my recommendation, or certainly find a way of controlling that. So that's the run through of that hour. I hope that is useful for you.